Inravio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson. You're watching the 505 On Racing Show. Welcome to another night of race talk. We have some good stuff to talk about. We'll have some results out of Pocono for the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series, as well as the Campingworld Truck Series that was at Pocono as well. The XFinity Series was in Iowa, as well as the K&N Pro Series East. Kind of makes, it was a combo race, so the K&N Pro Series East and West kind of race together and run for individual points, but we'll talk about that as we come to it. Tonight we're going to start a new segment, a segment that I've been kicking around for a while, and after we stopped the Where Are They Now, because what I did with that, just for those who know, I took champions going back to 1949 in what was called the Modified Series and the Grand National Series, and the champions in each series for each year, and how many championships they had, and what are they doing now. And we got to the point where some were still racing. And the same thing with the modifieds. We started going through that, and you look at the older type modified guys who had championships. It was interesting to see who was no longer racing and who was building race cars, who was working for race teams. And it got to the point that it ran its course. So I was looking for something to fill that in. So some Lost Speedways. Speedways that used to be, that were thriving, that no longer. So tonight we'll talk about, I believe, 3 of those speedways. And each week we'll try to come up with another 3. It's sad to say that we have to do that, we would hope that these racetracks stay on and on and on. And what happens is, as land becomes more desirable for other things and more profitable, to put a shopping center or a housing complex, and we need places to live and to grow. And you got to understand that some of these racetracks were built way back when there was nothing there. So we're going to get into that. I don't want to steal any thunder on that. But anyway, the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series was the Pocono Speedway in Pocono, Pennsylvania. Interesting racetrack. It's 3 turns and a long straightaway. Then you go into turn 1, a little shorter straightaway. You go into turn 2, a longer straightaway, but not as long as the front stretch as turn 3, and you come back. And you can't gear your car for Pocono. You have to shift. It's the road course that's not a road course. But anyway, the results out of Pocono for the Cup Series was Kyle Busch was the winner there, followed by Daniel Suarez, who had the pole. Alex Bowman second, Kevin Harvick, Alex Bowman third, Kevin Harvick fourth, Eric Jones fifth, William Byron sixth, Chase Elliott was seventh, Ryan Newman eighth, Kurt Busch ninth, and Denny Hamlin took down the pole there. The next event will be the road course up in Watkins Glen, New York. If you've never been up there, it's a beautiful place. You do not see the whole racetrack from anywhere, but it's a nice place. I've watched races there. I've worked cup races there, and it's amazing. It's just an amazing place. And they actually had to put a little turn in the area they called the bus stop to slow the cars down many years ago. But an interesting place to run, and I believe there'll be 5 or 6 races left before the playoffs start, so it's going to start getting dicey in the Cup Series. The Xfinity Series, they were in Iowa Speedway out in, of course, Iowa. And we got the results for there in the Xfinity Series. That would be Christopher Bell was the winner there, followed by Justin Allgaier. Kyle Benjamin was third. Ross Chaser was fourth. John Hunter Nemechek fifth. Elliott Sadler sixth. Ryan Reed seventh. Ryan Truex eighth. Cole Custer ninth. And Chase Briscoe rounding out the top 10. And we had Elliott Sadler from the pole there. And I still say it. I know a lot of people say stuff negatively about Chase Elliott. But I'll tell you what, he is one of, I mean, Chase Elliott Sadler, forgive me. He is probably the most talented driver not in Cup. And I guess he doesn't have the big bank book or daddy's money, as they say, or mommy's money for that case. But he really should be. He really, I believe that. And maybe his outspokenness and his temper maybe at times gets the best of him, but you know what, in my opinion, he's still the most talented driver not in Cup. And there's some people that I think he could and should replace, but I'll keep those thoughts to myself because those kind of thoughts just get me in trouble sometimes. They just do. And we got to be careful. And the Campingworld Truck Series, they were also at Pocono. Interesting to watch the trucks run at Pocono. And the results went something like this. We have Kyle Busch, the winner. Eric Jones, second. Dalton Sargent, third. Stuart Friesen, fourth. Justin Haley, fifth. Grant Enfinger, sixth. Todd Gillian, seventh. Johnny Sauter was eighth. Matt Craftston, ninth. And front row, Joe Nemechek rounding out the top 10. You haven't seen his name in a finish in a long time. But so it's interesting to see front row Joe finishing up in the top 10 in the Campingworld Truck Series. And, you know, for those who don't know, Joe Nemechek got that nickname, so to speak, because this is back when everybody had a nickname, because he's been doing this for a long time. He always qualified well. Poles, outside poles, but never had good finishes. I shouldn't say never. Often not. Did not have a good finish. So they started calling him Front Row Joe. And unfortunately, his whole career turned around to an unfortunate situation is when his brother John Hunter's father, was killed racing. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if I was racing with my brother and God forbid something happened to him where he lost his life, I don't know if I'd be able to continue on. And I'm sure people would say, you know, the cliches, that's what he would have wanted you to do, don't give it up, and there's people that, you know, will help you, but I don't know. I don't know. And the same thing goes with my good buddy Jimmy Blewett, losing his brother John III at the Thompson Motorsports Park a few years back. And I don't know how he continued on. And I'll tell you what, it takes a strong heart and an even tougher soul to be able to do that, especially when you go back to a track where your brother, you know, lost his life, you know, doing what we do, and that's racing. And you know, Jimmy Blewett has been in and out of the modified tour. He's done some dirt racing. Now he is just tearing off the pavement at the Wall Township Speedway down in Wall, New Jersey. And I'll tell you, Jimmy, you know, he spent some time racing for Eddie and Connie Partridge here on Long Island. I'm going to say it's got to be a good 10, maybe 8, 10 years ago. And he always was successful, always. And good guy, great guy. Trying to get him to take a trip to Long Island one of these days and sit here and be a guest, because he has some stories to tell, and he sure as heck can tell them. But you know, when you look at the top series in NASCAR, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, when you look at the top series in NASCAR and what it's doing and where it's going, you know, the France family is talking about the sale, and now they're talking about, you know, they want to retain ownership, you know, at least a majority share. And I got to tell you, you know, there comes a time in any business where it's time to hand over the reins to somebody else. The family has been running NASCAR since 1948. And, you know, Big Bill France, and, you know, he made it happen. He And he didn't just show up one day and say, I'm going to start NASCAR. He was promoting races in the late 30s and the 40s. And his races always, the men and women were paid at the end of the day, whereas some unscrupulous promoters, while the race was going on, they took the purse money and scooted out. There was no governing body to oversee that. And the United States government could care less of what was going on. It was not their problem. They had bigger things to worry about in the late 40s and mid 40s, and one of them was World War II. But anyway, when you look at what Big Bill France did and what he handed off to his son Bill France Jr., now I never met Big Bill, obviously, but I met Bill Jr., and here's a guy that walked the garage, talked to the car owners, talked to the drivers, knew them by name. If a fan went up to Bill France Jr. and asked for a picture or an autograph, he would do it. And it's funny how, you know, I was in the garages of many of a Cup event, and for some reason, people just stood there while Bill France Jr. or Bill Jr. was talking to somebody. They just stood there with their little pad and their pen. They're ready to go. And Bill would wave you over. Now, if somebody wanted a picture, he would take the picture, but he would say, all right, buddy, make it quick. And he'd do the pose and the picture would be taken. But he never denied anybody. And if at the end of the weekend or the end of a Friday or a Saturday, you were out in the town where the track was and you saw Bill Jr., you know, you could say hello as you walked past his table in a restaurant. You could say hello. And as long as he wasn't had the fork in his mouth to eat, he'd sign an autograph. I'm not thinking the current management NASCAR does that. I'm thinking that there's a lot of drivers, crew chiefs, that Brian France does not know, that he could just go up to and have a conversation. Brian France, he handles NASCAR in a whole different way up in the suite. Maybe he's whining and dining potential sponsors. I don't know. But I think pre-race, he needs to be in the garage area. He needs to be in the media center. He needs to be letting people know what his product is all about. And he's not doing that. And since his tenure, you know, in running NASCAR, there have been more changes in rules and procedure in his tenure than the tenure of his father and grandfather. My opinion on that, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Things were going good. Now all of a sudden you got to change things. You got to change people, racing people. Racing people have been in this business their whole lives. All of a sudden, you go to a racetrack and you're like, I don't recognize anybody. I don't recognize the people running the show. I don't recognize the people that the names are in the press releases. Yeah, there's some, but what happened to the other guys? What happened to the guys who had grease under their fingernails because they built them, they raced them, they wrecked them, they put it back together, and they raced them again? What happened to those people? You can't run a business or operate a business such as NASCAR that involves cars racing on the racetrack and have that run by people who never raced or involved with racing. You need a former promoter helping you run your show. You need a former, maybe team owner, maybe a driver. You know, and it doesn't have to be a successful driver, just a driver. A businessman who knows racing. Not because the guy or gal got a BA in marketing. You don't bring that person in because I have a BA in marketing. You bring a person in because they could bring you in folder after folder of what they've done in their lifetime for racing. And I say that, and I don't mean to say that in a bad word, but I guess it's coming across that way. But, you know, there's empty seats. Is that NASCAR's fault? Partially. They don't promote the races. The people who own the stadiums or the racetracks do. They don't sell the tickets, the racetrack does. But what they need to do is put a better product on the racetrack and put the driving back in the driver's hands. Lower some ticket prices, or get with the promoters to lower the ticket prices. Get with the local chamber of commerce to stop gouging the fans on hotels and airfare. And maybe we could have overflowing crowds like we used to. We come back, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the K&N Pro Series East event in Iowa, what's going on at the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tours, and a little more chat about what's going on in NASCAR when we come back.
Hey, what's up? Oh, I was going to say what's up for some reason. Hey, we're Set It Up, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Welcome back. The NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour was off this past week after a long weekend at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And the next event will be Friday, August 3rd at the Stafford Motor Speedway in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. Then they take 5 days off, and then they head to Thompson Motorsport Park. Now, this is a tough part of their schedule. You're racing Friday night, then 5 days later you got to go race again, and when you think about that, that's a lot of work for the crews and teams. And you're getting into the end. There's only a handful of races left, and it gets to the point now where things are going to start happening. Now Justin Bonsignore, he's tearing them up. He's got, I believe, a 32-point lead going into Stafford. And he's had some success at the Stafford Motor Speedway. And, you look at this series, and there aren't as many cars as there were just 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Man, I always wondered why they didn't run a B main, even though that's not NASCAR's way of doing it. If, 30 are going to start and 50 come, 20 are going home. And they spent a lot of money to do 2 laps, so to speak. But, now there's 25, 28, depending on the track. And it's not even so much the purse. They're racing for some purses, but believe it or not, they're like a weekly purse, $2,400 to win. And they're racing some nice sized purses, such as the Bristols and the New Hampshires for 10, 11, 12,000 win. And that's not the extra monies that get paid in by other people individually in envelopes that walk around and say, here you go. Such as here on Long Island at Riverhead Motor Raceway, where a certain individual, group of individuals come up with extra cash for the people to make it a nice payday. But the modifieds, I'll tell you what, the modifieds theoretically were the first division in NASCAR, because that's what they called them, modifieds. They called the cars that raced in 1949 and modifieds. Basically, you took a car out of the showroom, you modified it to go racing. And with some safety stuff and maybe tougher springs and whatnot, but you modified it. And then they became Grand National cars, and then the true modifieds came to be. And they called them modifieds because you basically could do anything you want. You modified something. You made your bodies, you made your parts, you made your headers. And you'd be back, and then you could tell who was going on the racetrack. And I say this sometimes. When you have all the cars, let's say, came out on the racetrack, the modifieds of the 60s and the 70s and into the 80s, if they came out in primer color with no numbers on it, you knew that was Charlie DeZombach. You knew that was Jerry Cook. You knew that was Richie Evans. You just knew from the way the cars looked. Now, what's happening is the bodies of the modifieds are pretty much exactly the same. And the only distinguishing part, per se, is the roof. And somewhere on the car, and I believe it still has to be on the roof somewhere, you have to put the make and model. Chevrolet, GM, whatever, Ford. And I can remember going through the garage there in Tech, one racetrack, it's got to be almost 6, 7 years ago. And old man Bill Bryce were walking around, and some guy put Cadillac on his hood, for whatever reason, on the roof, excuse me. And all of a sudden, Bill Bryce goes, you got to take that off. You got to change that. Why? And he gets out his rule book, goes right to the page. Show me where it said approved models, Cadillac. And the guy throws his arms up. He goes, Bill, the rear quarters, the doors, the back deck, the hood, they're all exactly the same. That means nothing. Well, according to this rule book. And he got into it with the guy over it. Now, I would have said nothing. Sometimes I got in trouble for not saying nothing. Because my philosophy when I was the lead technical inspector, which I forgot that I was until I just unpacked and I found an old program, and it said I was the lead technical inspector. I don't know, I guess I was. And my argument when I went back to the office, to the trailer, or hauler, was, listen, if it doesn't give them a competitive advantage and it's not a safety issue, let's just keep it. What's the difference? What's the difference? And sometimes I would get, well, the rule states, well, the rule needs to be changed. In some cases I won, some cases I didn't win, some cases we broke, all right, we met in the middle. And, I make them do it next time or 2 weeks from now. It was a decal, peel it off, put a new one on. They don't need 2 weeks to do that. They need about 10 minutes. But those are the things that were going on and have gone on, and I just never understood that, but I do, because it made it easier to tech. And I used to go into our hauler, and on the top of all the cabinets, there were templates, and I was like, if we got to go to templates, man, we're going to lose half the field. You know, the templates. Keep it simple. Ride height, roof height. Where they mount the transponder, you know, which is another thing, because some guys put it in this spot, some guys put it in that spot, and you know, who had a short bumper, who had a long bumper. Basically, then they made a rule, 150 inches. Why they used inches, I don't know, from the front edge of the front bumper to the middle of the transponder. This way, you know, one guy would pass, you know, that much, but this guy would win, even though this guy looked like he won. Was about where they mounted the transponders. And even the timing wire that runs under the racetrack through pit road, and nobody ever thought about the guy who's pitting like right at the transponder. So he on wire, and he'd pull in, trigger the transponder, and back up. And he'd get a reading, then pull out, and he'd get like a whole nother lap sitting in the pits. You know, Fred Fortemeyer Jr. brought that on my attention one day. He goes, "Watch, I'm gonna gain a lap on you today." How are you gonna do that? You'll see. And I saw, because he was pitting in that spot. But anyway, the modifieds are off, and I'll tell you what, they're gonna put on a good show with the Stafford Motor Speedway, because they always do. And your roots treat the modifieds, you know, not as the red-headed stepchildren. They treat them with dignity and respect, and I don't think there's a driver out there that doesn't mind going to the Stafford Motor Speedway. And it's a place I don't mind going to watch a race now either. Anyway, the K&N Pro Series East was at the Iowa Speedway last Friday in a combo show with the K&N Pro Series West. And the winner today was Tyler Ankrum. Derek Thorne was second. Ryan Partridge was third. Spencer Davis fourth. Ruben Garcia fifth. Tyler Dippigal was sixth from the pole. Ryan Vargas was seventh. Cole Arouse was eighth. Trevor Huddleston was ninth. And Kyle Benjamin rounding out the top 10. That Spencer Davis team, I'll tell you what, is turning heads. A team owner who was out of Long Island, former modified tour driver, Danny Watts Jr., put this deal together, and they've been very, very successful. Very successful, and it's nice to see some Long Island guys stepping into the K&N Pro Series East. I believe the last Long Island guy, if I'm not mistaken, was Brian Chu, who stopped racing to concentrate more on the family business, the car dealerships, and but the Buzz Chu Chevy is known to be seen on not only some NASCAR cars, but some Dirt Series cars as well. So it's good to see that happening. That you didn't lose a big sponsor. And there's also a big sponsor in the NASCAR Wheeling All-American Series at a local racetrack as well. So, and it's companies like that that keep the little guy going, keep the local racetracks going. And without those types of people, we'd be in trouble as race people. We'd be in big trouble. Anyway, the K&N Pro Series East will be heading to Watkins Glen for their next event as well. And that was the first place I worked, Watkins Glen, was with the K&N Pro Series. And the funny thing about it was, you know, when you get to the racetrack in the morning, there's a work assignment sheet. And then, you know, there's pre-race, or there's tech, pre-race, race, and post-race. And I'm looking at the roster sheet, and I'm like, all right, so the safety, pre-qualifying or pre-practice, my job was MSD boxes. It just said MSD boxes. I'm like, I don't want to embarrass myself, but what am I supposed to do to them? So I go to my good buddy Emil, who came and helped me on the tour, and we have some fun. In fact, I just saw him recently. We relived some of our fun. And he said, all you have to do is check the seals on the MSD boxes, that they weren't removed. Make sure that number on the seal matches what we have on file. And if the seal is broken or not there, put a new seal on it, record the serial number, be on your way. I'm thinking, wow, I don't know why they give me a simple job like this. And I'm walking through, and for some reason that day, everyone needed to be resealed, and whose looked like it was played with, and one of the guys did something that, you know, that I might have done or have known to be done by somebody known to me. And all I said to that crew chief, I said, I gotta do that car 3 cars away, and then I'm gonna come back here and maybe I'll see what I need to see. And they just stared at me because they don't really know me. It's my first K&N Pro Series race as an official. I go 3 cars away and I work my way back to them, and they knew just what I was talking about because that altered seal was MIA. I gave him a new one, boom, done. And then I went to the lead technical guy and told him what I uncovered. All right, I'll take care of it, whatever. And then for going over the scales for qualifying, they assigned me kick-up. Kick-up. What the heck is kick-up? So I go to the guy I'm rooming with because I semi had a one-night relationship with the guy because we talked all night. And he's gonna break my chops because I'm a modified guy, you know. And these are full-fended cars. And he goes, well, that's when you go to the fender and you kick up on it. I kid you not. And you kick up on it, and if it stays on, they're good. And then everybody around them laughed, and there was a tool on a long rod, and I just had to go to the valance and make sure the valance, the front nose piece of the car, make sure it was a certain height. Then I saw a race, and it said bus stop. That was my assignment, the bus stop. A bus stop? What are you talking about? So one of the guys was standing, he did the scales, and he starts laughing. He goes, that's not good. What do you mean it's not good? Well, that's when they fire you, they give you a bus ticket to get you home. And I guess you're going home. No, I can't be going home. I have a post-race job. They'll get that covered, don't worry. Now, I'm not sure if he's kidding or not. So, turns out that the bus stop is that turn way like from the pit area. You can't get there from here. You got to go outside the pits, go around grandstands, and I'm walking. I see spotters, you know, because they got their backpacks and they got their headsets and their radios, and they're all going in like cars and 6-passenger golf carts. And I saw one of the guys. I said, "You guys headed to the bus stop?" "Yeah." I said, "Me too." He goes, "Well, by the time you get there, the race will be half over." So somebody gave me a ride, and there I was at the bus stop. So it was a fun and interesting experience, and which I had many of with the K&N Pro Series East. Traveled all over the country with them. And I'll tell you what, now I said it before and I'll say it again, the best group of men and women I ever worked with as officials. And I got to reconnect with a bunch of them at the Thompson Motor Parts Sports Park a couple of weeks ago. And we get to share some stories and tell some good stories and have some good laughs. So anyway, we're going to take a break. And we come back, we'll be introducing our new segment, Lost Speedways. And tonight we're going to talk about the Nazareth Speedway in Pennsylvania, North Wilkesboro in North Carolina, and Long Island's own Islip Speedway when we come back.
Hi, I'm Remington.
I'm Emerson.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're Palais Royale, and you're watching Inravio TV.
There we go.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hey, this is Chris Les Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Master. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jarecki from My Race News, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Welcome back, everybody. Lost Speedways. In my lifetime, tracks that have closed that I have been to, National Speedway in Manorville on Long Island, Islip Speedway, Bridgehampton Road Course, Riverside Park up in Riverside, Mass. And I liked that place because it was next to an amusement park. Only went there once, and I can't remember what I saw there or what I was so impressed that, you looked over there and it was a big Ferris wheel. But anyway, Lost Speedways. I have a picture. This is what an abandoned speedway looks like. Fence rusting. As you can see where the pavement was is all weeds. And what happens is when a racetrack closes for any length of time, it's lost. You can't just pull the weeds and paint the fence and paint the wall and go racing again. Pavement's no good. If the weeds are growing up there like they are there is no pavement because Mother Nature takes back what we took from Mother Nature. And when they take it back with a vengeance. A few years from now, you won't even see that. And eventually those little weeds, and you see those little sticks there, this is obviously taken in the non-summer months, this picture. When you see the sticks like that, they're little trees now that are growing. And they're going to be big trees. And eventually they're going to overtake the wall. And 50 years from now, if nobody touches it, it's going to look like you'll never know a racetrack was there. And it's sad when a racetrack closes, because nobody's building new racetracks. Nobody. Nobody wants it in their backyard. Nobody wants a racetrack that they could hear 10 miles away. Nobody wants that. So I'm going to talk about some of these racetracks that have disappeared. And just the first one I'm going to talk about is Nazareth Speedway in Pennsylvania. Now you look at that picture. If you look on the right-hand side where a dog lays out, that's where the grandstands were. There's trees growing there already. The middle part, of course, was the pit area. And then you see to the left of the pit area, it's all trees. And you can see where Mother Nature has taken back the racetrack. It's taken it back. Now, Nazareth Speedway in Pennsylvania is near Nazareth. It's not in Nazareth, but it's near Nazareth in the Lehigh Valley region of Pennsylvania, which operated from, listen to this, 1910 to 2004. Originally a dirt twin oval, and when it was originally built, it was a horse racetrack, but it was a dirt twin oval that was built, and then it was paved in 1987 as a tri-oval, just over 1 mile in length. Roger Penske purchased the track and much of the surrounding property in 1987. Xfinity events, as well as kart and IRL, successfully staged events at this facility. International Speedway Corp purchased the facility from Roger Penske and moved some of its NASCAR events there as the Xfinity. And once they were done with what they needed to do, they moved the races there to Watkins Glen. I don't understand that one. Now, due to the surrounding land purchases, entry to the facility is severely limited. which means you couldn't run a race there. You need to get the cars and the haulers into the garage, and you need to get the people into the grandstand. But the land around it has been purchased by other entities. As of 2007, the grandstands, signage, and all visible structures of the track have been removed. So there's nothing, there's the wall, that's it. That's all that's left there. Now, when that has done, when that's done, that tells you whoever owned it at the time could care less, that there was no plan ever to sell it as a racetrack or anything in that manner. So now, the disassembly of the grandstands that were in the middle right, this is when when I heard this was happening, I knew that NASCAR had no desires to keep this place. Well, they took the grandstands. Some of the grandstands went to Watkins Glen in upstate New York, and the rest went to the Michigan International Speedway. In 2015, J. Knoll Real Estate purchased the property and signed a non-compete clause, which was included into the proposal, stating no racing will be allowed due to its proximity to Pocono International Speedway. So that tells me that the Mattioli family, who owned Pocono International Speedway, made a deal with NASCAR and said, listen, sell this place, please, you're hurting me. And I'll do whatever you ask me to do. Because there's a lot of those backroom deals that go on that a lot of people know about. So that's with the end of Nazareth. There'll never be a race there. Mario Andretti cut his teeth there. That was his home track. History is withering away. The next track I'm going to talk about is North Wilksboro Speedway in North Carolina. The picture over my left shoulder is the building for the facility. And as you could see, it's crumbling away. It's collapsing. There's really, look at that. That's the top of where the grandstands are. See those windows are? That's the press box. That's where the tower for the officials, the press, it's crumbling, literally crumbling away. North Wilkesboro Speedway is one of NASCAR's original tracks, running its first event in 1949 and its last event in 1996. Track reopened briefly in 2010, hosting several stock car series races, including AMA Late Model Series, which is now defunct, USAR Racing, past Super Late Models, then closing for good in 2011. Enoch Staley was inspired by an event run by the late Bill France Sr., and he built the track in Wilkes County, North Carolina. Enoch and his partners purchased the surrounding farmland in an area known for moonshine running, and the cost to build this, and this is the picture of what's left of the grandstand. The trees are growing through the grandstand. Look at that. The trees are going through. And the cost to build this track back then, he built it, I believe, in 1947, was $1,500. Bill France Sr. promoted the first event, a dirt race in 1947, as a modified event. 3,000 fans were expected, 10,000 came. Build it, and they will come. In January of 1996, the Staley family sold a 51% share to Bob Baer, builder of New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Bruton Smith, who is the owner or the head person at Speedway Motorsports, Inc., was a minority owner at the time. Both owned tracks on the NASCAR schedules. North Wilkesboro's 2 Cup dates were moved to tracks owned by Bob Baer and Bruton Smith. After the fall of 1996, the track was closed, and they will never be racing there again. It's just too far gone. Again, you look at those grandstands, They'd have to tear them down. They'd have to cut trees down. It just would be an unsafe place to watch a race. And I wish I had pictures of the pavement, because it's just overgrown with weeds as well, but through the cracks, you can at least still see the pavement. And the last track we're going to talk about today is a track that's near and dear to my heart, and it's Islip Speedway on Long Island. And that picture there is Marty Himes of the Marty Himes Museum of Racing Nostalgia doing the final lap on that track right before the bulldozers came. And that you can't get a better shot than that. You got the Islip USA faded sign, the weeds growing through the pavement, and you can see under the grandstands the weeds are growing. And you know, I raced at Islip Speedway. Well, I wouldn't call it, I did racing, I did laps. And that was in 1978 and a little bit in 79, and I just got married and realized I might want to just not race anymore. But I spent a lot of Saturday nights and a lot of Sundays at Islip Speedway, with my grandfather watching the races, my Uncle John racing figure eight cars, and watching Charlie de Zombach and Jimi Hendrickson and Fred Harback battling in the modifieds, back then. But Islip Speedway was a tight 1/5 mile track on Long Island South Shore, and it operated from 1947 to 1984. It was the smallest track ever to race a cup event, which it did from 1964 to 1971. The first ever demolition derby was also held at Islip Speedway in 1958. In 1962, a figure eight course was added, and year-end world championship and demolition derbies were held and televised by ABC's Wide World of Sports at the facility, which made a growing interest in demolition derbies across the country. The Speedway ran under the Nascar banner, racing modifieds and figure eights weekly, and also including ARDC midgets, late models, mini modifieds, and a ladies division, just to name a few of the divisions that ran there over the years. The track was built on property which was once the Islip Airport, and the track's closure was due in part to complaints from surrounding neighbors complaining about the noise of the racetrack on a Saturday night. And when this track was built back in the 40s, there was nothing out there, nothing. A road that led into it, period, the end, on each side. One was Route 111, one was Freeman Avenue, and a big radio antenna. That was it. So people started building houses there and decided to close the racetrack. The property now houses a cookie factory, a gym, and a few commercial buildings. One gentleman who was walking out near the property, he was walking his dog one day, and I went up to him and I said, "You missed the racetrack?" And I only said that facetiously. He was an older guy. You could tell he lived out, he was around a while. He goes, "I wish it was back." I said, "You do, really?" He goes, "Yeah, because the racetrack operated maybe 5-6 months out of the year, one Saturday, one day a week on a Saturday. This cookie factory runs 24/7, trucks in and out all day long. I smell the smell of cookies cooking all the time. If the wind's blowing the right way, that's all I smell. I can't smell you smell my flowers, because I wish the racetrack was about." That's why you've got to be careful what you wish for. But when you look back, Bob Park won the last NASCAR event at the Speedway, and a plaque, a historical plaque, was on the street that led to the racetrack off of 111, which somebody stole, took down, and they're expensive to replace. And the other sad part about it is only that guy could look at it, because if he showed it to somebody and they turned him in, he'd be going to jail. And that would be a federal offense, because that's a federal, it's a federal monument when they put those monuments up. But anyway, that's it on today's Lost Speedways. We'll have 3 more next week, and we'll go. And if you have a speedway that you want, Lost Speedways and want me to talk about, just send me a message and we're doing it. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We're going to wrap up. We got a couple more things to talk about real quick, and we'll wrap up, and we'll go from there when we come back.
Hey guys, this is Jibs from Ocean's 8, Alaska, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Mark Weller. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
What's up, guys? This is Assuming We Survive, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Anyway, just got a message from one of our viewers that there's not a feed on Facebook Live. I'm sorry about that. I apologize. So for those who are trying to watch, there's the old conventional way, Inravio.com. Look on our show, and we'll catch it in the archive. So I'll put a message up on our Facebook page at the conclusion of tonight's show. But anyway, some NASCAR news. According to Autosport.com, Richard Petty Motorsports has extended NASCAR Cup Series driver Darrell Bubba Wallace Jr. and signed him to a multi-year agreement. Bubba was signed originally for 1 year, and although his season is not what everybody would have liked it to be, but however, he is in the battle for Rookie of the Year. He's also he's 24th in points. He's had some tough breaks, and Pocono was not his favorite place, obviously. He had a hard wreck going in, I believe, into turn to one, and a lot of damage to the race car. He got out of the car in his own power and limped into the infield and into the ambulance to go get checked out. They checked him out. They according to Bubba, they scanned his body, and he has no broken bones, no damage. I'm sure when he wakes up tomorrow morning, on Tuesday morning, he will be sore. I watched that hit over and over, and it just seems like, he lost his brakes and he realized it, and the mistake that he made, and I'm not saying he made this mistake, he did, was that he should have just went up and brushed against the wall. He lost his brakes and just should have scraped along. Instead, he turned it down into the infield. And for some reason, you get on grass when you're going 180 miles an hour, you speed up, and he was like actually lifting. And then he hit the pavement, and he hit a ton. His spotter, Freddie Kraft, who happens, for those who don't know, be my cousin, was quoted on social media as saying that, he said, "Bubba, are you okay?" He said it took about a minute or less, and it was the longest minute in his life. Because when you're on the other end, and you're spotting and your driver's in a wreck, and you don't get that immediate response, your heart starts doing weird things, your stomach starts doing weird things. And that fateful day when Dale Earnhardt Sr. Decided he was going to go race somewhere else and go race in heaven, the slicing and the dicing for the last 5 laps between Dale Jr. and Michael Waltrip and Dale Sr., I said, I gotta listen to the Senior, and I'm listening, and he hit a ton, maybe a half a ton, but he hit. And I heard on the radio, Richard Childress said Daly, you are right. And there was no response. And my stomach did probably what Freddie's did. And, being a spotter is not an easy thing. I've done it at short tracks. I've done it at Bristol. I did it at Riverhead, Martinsville. And, the rate of speed a car is going, and by the time you hit your button, and you have to wait like a little bit, and I always say to people, hit the button, inhale, then talk, because otherwise your first word isn't heard, and the first word might be the important one. And by the time you do that, that car just went a football field. Think about it. 60 miles an hour is a mile a minute. So, you think about, the distance that car travels. I mean, not a football field, but it's gone a great distance. And so a lot happens. So you really have to be way ahead, and that's why you need your eyes to work separately, because you have to need one eye on your car, one eye on what's ahead. And you're going to go like this and go like this. But Bubba's okay, and like I said, he signed a multi-year deal with Richard Petty Motorsports. And the rumors over the years at Richard Petty Motorsports, no matter who's driven for him, and Big Bob O'Rourke, who is a race director all over the East Coast, and including down in Daytona, he was like the king. Bob O'Rourke one night was sitting in his office, and I don't remember which driver was moving into the 43 seat, and somebody goes, that's good, you get a lot of money, and Bob O'Rourke goes, Richard Petty doesn't pay a lot of money, and that's why a lot of drivers don't stay, and that's why some of them move on. This is a perfect opportunity for Bubba Wallace, because he's trying to cut his teeth. So I don't think he's going to move on for the big payday just as yet. And that's why Richard Petty signed him to a long-term or a multi-year deal. And Richard Petty, in an interview one time, and I'll never forget this, and I gained a lot of respect for him in this interview. Not that I didn't already have respect for Richard Petty and what he's done for our sport, but Richard Petty was questioned about the pay his drivers got. And he answered the question very professionally. And he said, the salary my drivers get is between Richard Petty Racing or Petty Enterprises and my driver and our accountants. But if Petty Enterprises makes money, my driver will make money. And Richard Petty made this announcement now because you can't have doubt with your driver going into the next season. I tell this to drivers every year when they're looking for sponsors. They start looking in March and the season starts in April. No, you need to start looking now for next year. Most companies, their fiscal years aren't January to December. The fiscal years are usually different times of the year, depending on when their business was incorporated or formed or whatever. And you got to catch them now so it goes into their budget for next year. Everybody can get a $100 sponsor. Everybody can get something to buy them a tire. Everybody can get them a barrel of fuel. But when you want the true big sponsor, you got to start looking now for next year. So anyway, congratulations to Bubba. I hope he feels better in the morning, because that was a hard, doggone hit, let me tell you. That was a hard hit. Tore up another race car, Pocono. But they'll be at Watkins Glen ready to rock and roll. And although I don't see Bubba having a fantastic run at Watkins Glen, but he's going to have a good one. Anyway, that's all we got tonight, folks. I want to thank everybody for taking time in your busy schedule to watch tonight. And for wherever your endeavors will bring you this weekend, please be safe. Please be careful. Tell somebody you love them, give them a hug. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Inravio.com.